Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Want to be a part of the Nerd Party community? Don't forget to like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/thenerdparty and follow us on Twitter at @JoinNerdParty. You can also help us by leaving a rating and comment in Apple Podcasts to help spread Time and Space to other listeners. If you want to contact us, visit thenerdparty.com/contact, click on our show logo, and leave a comment for us there. Time and Space, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Jessica Nunn.
And I'm her husband and co-host, Philip Gilfus. Well, we're continuing our celebration of all things 11th Doctor.
Indeed.
And we thought we would do it by sort of comparing the beginning and the end.
Yes, that seems appropriate.
Or does it?
The Alpha and the Omega.
Yes. I like it.
Thank you.
And for our Inside the TARDIS Library segment, we're going to be talking to Connie Gibbs, who interviewed Christopher Eccleston at New York Comic Con.
Christopher Eccleston, who is not the 11th Doctor, for those of you who are keeping track.
Well.
But far too interesting a topic to let go.
I mean, he's the 10th Doctor.
No, not the 10th. Well, I guess.
Exactly. You want to get into this, we can get into it.
Oh, no.
But yes, let's start with the 11th Hour, which premiered the 3rd of April, 2010. General thoughts about watching it again for the second or third time?
Yeah, at least the third time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really love it. I think Little Amy is fantastic. Fish Fingers and Custard. I mean, it's a great episode. Mm-hmm. I love it. And Olivia Colman.
It's true.
What more do you need?
And then sort of sets up, not that we knew at the time, potentially at least the series and both the era.
Yeah,
story arcs.
Absolutely. The crack in the wall shows back up at the very end, and obviously makes reappearances throughout. But yeah, it comes full circle, as 'twere.
And we have Olivia Colman's Prisoner Zero talking about the Pandora will open, which will be the end of that first series. And then, of course, Silence Will Fall.
Yes.
Which is the end of the era. And then that takes us all the way to the Time of the Doctor, a Christmas special, 2013, Christmas Day. And what were your general thoughts about the Christmas special of Matt Smith's final outing?
Yeah, I really like it because it brings a lot to, you've got Gallifrey, you've got the crack in the wall, you've got the Silence Will Fall, because everybody sort of assumes that it ends, that Silence fell, that Silence was defeated.
Right.
But that's not what it boils down to. And you've got wait a minute, he only gets 13 iterations. How do we fix that?
Right.
So, yeah, I think a lot of things tied up quite nicely.
Mm-hmm. In a perfectly Steven Moffatian way.
Moffatian?
Used to be my favorite breakfast.
That was my nickname in high school. I don't remember why.
Well, I guess that's it. We've talked about the two
all
episodes.
Right,
We're much earlier than usual. Let's go to it. So, in the beginning, right? Introducing a new Doctor. We have a new showrunner. We have a new everything. It's sort of a
all change,
repilot or soft reboot or whatever we want to call it when we're starting. Blank whiteboard. All we have is a new Doctor and a crashing TARDIS, and you go from there.
Yep.
So, who is this Matt Smith character, darling?
Who is this Matt Smith? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he got the gig.
Right.
Do you?
He auditioned, I think.
Well, yes. But, I mean, as far as I know, he hadn't done a whole lot before this. He was planning on being a soccer star, and
I think it's curious, and again, this is sort of me speculating wildly, so it probably means nothing. But, as we always say, you look to what you had and then what's different. So you had Chris Eccleston, big name.
Very established.
David Tennant, not as big of a name, but he had been up and coming.
He had been working quite steadily.
Right, working actor. And so, obviously, big fan and knocked out of the part. And so then... is it a thought because obviously Matt Smith is the youngest Doctor ever. So, that certainly can't be an accident of we're going young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like real young.
A definite choice, yeah. And the idea of bringing in a complete, or I'm sure not a complete, but a relative newcomer, particularly comparatively speaking. And in what follows.
Right.
Then going to Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, neither of whom
are young
newcomers.
Yes.
So with Matt Smith, we get a complete all change, and I'd be interested in what the hook was.
Right.
I love Matt Smith. Don't get me wrong, and I think he's great in it. But where in the process the casting people went, yes, that guy, whoever he is.
And again, presumably, Moffat had some sort of idea.
Yeah, because also presumably they don't do complete open casting calls.
Right.
They don't say, hey, we're looking for a new Doctor. Everybody who wants to audition, come on out. So theoretically, there was some sort of invitation or something.
And then what do you think immediately of the 11th Doctor?
And it's difficult, obviously, to
go back in time.
Yes, to give that judgment of the first time I saw Matt Smith. But I think straight away he does a really nice job of establishing what he is and who he's going to be.
I think out of all the new Who Doctors, I feel like I can say this, he's the most defined by the end of that first episode. Because, except for maybe 9... Because I think, Chris is 9, seems very alien. He sort of has that standoff, that distance, which kind of makes him alien. But I guess because we're kind of going into things new, we don't know him. Not that he's not well defined, we just don't know what to look for.
Right. I was just going to say, I think it's a difficult call to make because he was the first new Doctor.
And then with 10, he's in his pajamas the whole time, so there's really...
Mostly unconscious.
Yeah, so there's really not much to play with in that first episode. Some sprinkles, but nothing. And then 12, deep breath, he's kind of out of it the whole time. He's also in his pajamas.
Hanging out with the dinosaurs.
Yeah, figuring
or
out
dragons.
he's Scottish.
It's dinosaurs, isn't it?
Yeah. And you don't really get a... He's very confused. As most regenerations are, but that's sort of his. And then even Jodie with the 13th. She's kind of still... I think in maybe some ways that she's always been who she's been, the 13th Doctor, but I guess it was hard to recognize it. Because you're like, is this the first episode? Is this who she is in this? And then you're like, oh, subsequently too, oh yeah, that's who she was.
Yeah, and I think, and possibly in a similar way to the way that Jodie Whittaker did it, the Matt Smith's confusion from the regeneration also is part of what defines him. The figuring out the foods and all of that sort of stuff is part of the regeneration confusion, but it's also done in such a way that that's who the Doctor is, which I think is really delightful. But then at the end, and he is sort of confused and goofy, which stays with him, yeah. But that last bit where he's like, wait a minute. No, these aliens are leaving and I'm calling them back because I got something else to say.
Leaving is good, never coming back is better.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a really lovely arc for him just in that episode of, I don't like apples, I don't like...
Yogurt,
yes, all of those sorts of
your
things.
Scottish fry something.
From there to this planet's under my protection. Yeah. I'm the Doctor. Look at all the Doctors before me. All of that moment is Yeah, I think it's a nice round episode for him to establish.
And do you think that there are, not necessarily in a negative way, but are there corrections from the 10th Doctor? Corrections may be the wrong word, but differences from the 10th Doctor. I mean, you have the youngishness, which I don't want to mean to belay on too much, but I think the silliness obviously is ramped up because the 10th Doctor is a little more grounded than the 11th Doctor, but I think, there's much more comedy with the 11th Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, I think that final scene reeks of the 10th Doctor. I mean, absolutely, and not too dissimilar to the way the 10th Doctor's first episode ends.
Yes.
Of, oh, I'm confused, oh, I'm confused, oh, I'm confused, and now I'm in a knife fight, and you've cut off my hand, and that's okay, because I'm, pushing the button, and what is he, no second chances,
yes,
or whatever he says. They finish very similarly.
But one thing, this is sort of in retrospect, which is what we're talking about, I think with the difference between with the 11th Doctor, the first and the last episode, but that sort of, basically run, that sort of intimidation. But that's actually, I think, that first episode sort of really shows us without knowing us, the 11th Doctor, because he is this comedic figure. But then you have stuff like A Good Man Goes to War. You have these episodes where the 11th Doctor is almost one of the most epic of the Doctor. Like, he's the most powerful. Doctor
means warrior in so many different languages.
He's the one, and this is my opinion, so you can disagree. I think he's the one you don't mess with the most. I think he's the most powerful Doctor in many ways. Yeah,
I think I would agree with that. And I think ultimately it's what leads us to the moment with the 12th Doctor when he and Clara realize they can't travel together.
Right.
Because that has built and carries on through into the 12th Doctor.
I mean, I get that you're going to have the 12th Doctor, he faces Gallifrey and Rassilon, but that's near the end, and yeah, I mean, whatever. But, I mean, the 11th Doctor, he's the one who commanded an army, with the...
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, and is prepared to fight yep. every time. And it's also interesting to consider, there's the bit in the 50th anniversary where they talk about what each regeneration remembers.
Right.
In terms of the number of people who died and the
number
Time
of children.
War. Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. And so we're also looking at it from... Christopher Eccleston's Doctor is still very tortured by the Time War. David Tennant's Doctor, less so. And potentially Matt Smith's, even less so, to the point at times, once again, using his power in places that sometimes it doesn't necessarily need it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, if we want to pop, analyze the 11th Doctor, I feel like at that point he's buried it so far deep, and he covers that with the comedy and the wackiness and all that it's really down deep. And so the whole I've moved on. I moved on. I didn't, what's the point? To where you then have the 12th Doctor where it all comes out. Mm-hmm. Well, or theoretically you have the 50th where... by meeting the War Doctor, he figures it
flushes it a bit.
Of course,
then
he regenerates like 2 episodes later, so it's hard to
reconcile. But I think that we then see it in this last episode when Gallifrey shows back up again. And he wants immediately to bring them back and is then battling everybody else to get Gallifrey back.
And I think...
finding his own redemption, maybe.
And, not that it's a competition, because you could say the 10th Doctor, too, but I think the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, in particular, as the actor, has this range of emotions that's outstanding. I mean, especially someone so young, but, again, you have the playfulness, but you also have that deep power that he can have that old soul, old eyes, the old Time Lord, but then he also cries. You know, I think of like the episode, I can't remember the name of the one where you know, the Doctor has a secret that he's taking to a grave and it is found. When Clara tells him that, and he just sits on the sofa and says those were the words, and he just has that moment that he's gonna die, and you know, that single tear or whatever comes down and he recovers. But then even in this last episode with the time of the Doctor, when Handel says Gallifrey, and he has that sort of reaction.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think he's absolutely brilliant. I do just love Matt Smith.
And then even in the old age makeup, which first time I watched I thought was ridiculous. This time around I felt like, it's actually not that bad, I guess. But that he's still able to... He does, I don't know. I mean, it's good acting, that's what it is. But that he is able to portray the 11th Doctor being that old. Mm. It's not crazy. And actually, I think I was reading some research where I think he's hurt his leg or something. But anyway, so that cane may have been actually useful. But you know, he's playing that as an older character, but still has that emotion of meeting Clara and the boy and all that stuff and all that. Well, but so we talked a little bit about this. But how did the 11th Doctor change? Was there any character growth from first to last?
Yeah, I mean, I think finding that hubris, you know, the first episode is, at the very end, very offensive.
Right.
You know, get back here, I'm telling you what's what. Mm-hmm. And as he sees that power grow up to the, you know, the Pandorica and all of that hubris of using his power, and then with the final episode, an almost switch off of all defense. I am keeping you away from this planet. I am not attacking you for coming after the planet, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And doing it all to protect Gallifrey. I think all of those things. Yeah, I think there's very much a hubris arc there.
And it's sort of and I can't tell if it's the writing or just the actual character, that there's that no-win situation, right? So you have every villain alien, you know, attacking Trenzalore in the town of Christmas. But then you have, you know, the Doctor can either bring in the Time Lords, which he kind of wants to do, but if he does that, I guess the Time War starts again because, you know, Gallifrey's back.
Well, and all of those aliens are waiting to attack Gallifrey. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if he brings them back with everybody sitting there waiting, mm-hmm. it is going to start the war again.
And then if he doesn't, then he doesn't bring them back. So.
And is betraying his people who are begging for help.
Yeah, the one who he put there in the first place.
Yep.
Let's go into some more surface things. How did his look change?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the things that I quite like about this are the echoes from the Eighth Doctor, mm-hmm. of finding his new outfit in the hospital with just whatever is there. You know, you get the doctors who go into the TARDIS wardrobe. But like the Eighth Doctor, he is just stealing things out of people's lockers. Kind of thing, and comes out in that final scene with like 4 different bow ties and ties around his neck, and and establishes his catchphrase of blank are cool. Fezzes are cool. Cowboy hats are cool. Bow ties are cool.
Because, you know, Matt said he wanted to go for the more professorial look, so that he was embracing the tweed. But, and watching some extras, he did say he actually was hoping eventually to get some purple. And so,
which he does.
Yeah, actually, which I like. I like his coat. Because, you know, you have the Tennant, and even Whittaker have the long coat. But I don't know what you call Smith's coat by the end, because it's not all the way to his bottom. It's kind of like almost to his knees. It's a little higher than that, but you know, it's longer than his suit coat that he wore in the beginning. So, but it is I mean, he is the same look that he had in the beginning. It's just sort of I don't know. It's not darker. I don't know. It's just expanded upon look. I mean, it's like, you sort of have the neat professor, but then you sort of have different kind of playing with the colors and the length and all that, and so more of a frockier, like he wears a vest and all that. So
again, hearkening back to the Eighth Doctor,
yeah,
which is another good look. I like it.
And so we started off with Amelia and her boyfriend in the beginning, and now we have Clara at the end. So, how do you think those relationships were?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always said, I love Amy and Rory. Love them. But I also really liked Clara with the 11th Doctor. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I did like the parallelism where you had the little boy, asking whether the Doctor would be back, and it's sort of like just like Amelia in the first episode, waiting for him to return. Yeah, you have the sort of the earned relationship with Clara, where she sort of holds onto the TARDIS throughout time and space as it returns back to Christmas. And then you have him sending her away, and then you have her trying to save her, one last victory. And then you have her basically doing echoes of what she did in the 50th, of sort of being, the voice of whatever, this time talking to the Time Lords to save the Doctor in so many words. So... yeah.
And also not dissimilar to how her arc starts in terms of continuing to show up
to save the Doctor
unexpectedly. The impossible girl, she held on to the outside of the TARDIS. That shouldn't be. She's just the impossible girl.
And how do you think Matt changed how he played the role, or did he?
I think that there was continued growth and depth added. Again, all of that physical comedy, which Matt Smith is absolutely phenomenal at, still sort of sticks around, the fast draw wit, the scene where he's fixed everybody's toys and, it's all just bam, 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 Aaron Sorkin kind of wording, but it's got the depth to it now, and I don't necessarily know how to explain that. More depth. That's what I'm going with. More depth.
Johnny Depp.
Fathoms below.
Yeah, because I just think, again, with the role, you have him turning into a Father Christmas character, who, again, is a sort of silly character, but then you have him standing up to every villain that ever was, and again, that deep power, whether it's fighting wooden Cybermen or,
And ultimately the redemption that Gallifrey gives him. They forgive him. He's the one that they come to for help, and when Clara has that go at them, forgives him. Gives him more regenerations, gives him that redemption that I think he's been looking for since Christopher Eccleston stepped on the stage, as 'twere.
Yeah, I just think there's good scenes where it's like where he and Clara, she's sort of arguing with him, and he's like, "Well, that's the same argument I've been having for how many hundreds of years." Him talking about this being the end for him. Not as heavy as the Tennant and Wilfred.
Piper. Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, scene about dying. But because he's a little more wistful, I guess. The 11th Doctor, this is the end. And...
well, and he's had a lot more time to come to terms with it.
Right. He is presumably the 11th Doctor is the oldest Doctor ever. Not just the oldest, but like the most in that incarnation. He's lived the longest. You can argue the 12th, but he was in a time bubble. I don't know if you want to count that.
Oh, right, for those thousands of...
billions.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to count that. So it's just the same thing over and over again. So,
yeah.
Sort of a Doctor Strange kind of thing. But yeah. So how would you describe the 11th Doctor? What are
lovely
his traits?
Witty. Again, and I think that in my head encompasses not only the physical humor, but the quick wit, the fast-paced, as you said, powerful. Very, very powerful.
Because, for instance, and they've done this with all their Doctors, but, with that first episode, he's going around his list of assets: no TARDIS, no screwdriver. What is it? 2 minutes to save. Okay, and then going to work.
Don't know what you're gonna add to it.
So for the ending, was it satisfying? The time of the Doctor was a satisfying final story for Matt Smith and the 11th Doctor.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think it was more of a slow burn than we see with really any of the Doctor regenerations. Mm-hmm. We know from the beginning, kind of, I mean, not the very beginning, but relatively early on, we know that this is happening.
Right.
As he's aging and all of those sorts of things. We know we have a lot of time to come to terms with it. So I think it's much more of a slow burn. But I don't think that's a bad thing, particularly because you do have the regeneration doesn't come as a surprise, but you do have the tension of this is my last regeneration.
Right.
Up until it's not. And that's the surprise.
Yeah, I think, it's not as, and I know this is going to be a negative word, but I don't mean it that way. It's not as indulgent as the 10th Doctor's final episode. You don't have this long goodbye, which, I mean, that's neither good nor bad, right? I mean, obviously I have nothing wrong with the 10th Doctor's long goodbye. It was, the best part of the...
Yeah, and I was going to say, that is one thing that I miss about this one, is that we don't get to revisit. I mean, River Song. He
mentions her, but I guess he had said goodbye to her in the Name of the Doctor, the 2 episodes earlier. Before when he jumps into the time stream, there's that,
Yeah.
And he's, she says, say goodbye. He's like, you shouldn't even be here anymore. And how do we say goodbye?
Yeah, I still would have liked, because it's, I love the 10th Doctor's revisiting of everybody, including the woman from the John Smith book. I just think all of that's really lovely, and so I think some sort of revisiting would not have been a bad thing. I like the self-indulgence of it.
Yeah, no. Because I remember the first time I saw this, when it came on, Christmas or whatever. Well, I don't know if I watched it literally on Christmas, so it was later in the day, but whenever I watched it for the first time, I remember not liking it, and I remember being like, this wasn't how I would have liked it for it to go. I will say, watching it for the first time, I thought they would fool us. Or no, I was fooled when, Clara enters the TARDIS and sees all the clothes everywhere, and you see the boots walking up, and for a second I thought that's going to be Peter Capaldi. He's just going to walk up, and that's it. It was already, we missed it or whatever. But it's sort of like, they fooled us all. No, it's just Matt Smith being young again. But I did like the end where you have sort of the Doctor giving up, the old Doctor on the clock tower, and it's the end and whatever, and then he gets the regeneration, and then suddenly, he gets his spirit back, literally and figuratively, and then, taunts the Daleks and destroys them and goes from there.
Yeah. And I'm not crazy about the Amy reunion, partly because it's something about the way it's filmed, but it doesn't look like Amy's looking at him. And so I was like, did they just film these separately and mush them together?
Possibly, who knows?
Yeah. And of course Rory's not there, and I appreciate that maybe Arthur Darvill was going and doing cool hipster things like Arthur Darvill does. But I was just sad that we get a little bit of Amy that looks like it might not actually be in the same room. And no Rory.
It's kind of reminiscent of when Clara appears for the 12th Doctor. Clearly not filmed in the same location, because it shows Clara there, and then the 12th Doctor, and then Clara there.
Yeah.
And it's like a green screen behind her, obviously. But, it just makes me think of, like, the old classic, with the 5th Doctor and the swirling heads.
Yeah.
Or the 4th Doctor. Actually, both of them actually had swirling heads, now that I think about it. Upon their regenerations, but that was sort of the modern version of the swirling head.
Yeah.
Just to bring them back to say goodbye, So...
I think the 10th Doctor definitely gets the very best goodbyes.
He does. But I do enjoy that the 11th Doctor sort of just died of natural causes. Doesn't often happen for the Doctor.
No, absolutely. Like I say, it's a slow burn, and the tension is not what's going to happen to him to cause him to regenerate. The tension is, will he regenerate because he is on his 13th?
And then there's the whole, the Doctor's story about, he finally found a place to stay. Obviously he's the protector in the first episode, and he's the protector in the last episode, and obviously that's a lot of who the Doctor is. But this isn't Earth, I guess they're humans, but, he's protecting the village as much as he's protecting Gallifrey as well, so.
And also accepting a destiny that he knows has been in the works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because he's now revisiting Trenzalore that he knows is his death place.
Yep. So. And again, the crack in the wall and silence will fall. All of these things falling into place, I think.
When the question is asked.
Yep. Yep. I just kept seeing the blue guy's head.
Doctor. And then, and this I would credit, Steven, credit where credit is. It's such a random thing, and there's really no reason for it to be in there, but Handles is such an unexpected emotional character.
Yes.
Who thought the decapitated Cyberman head would sort of like Wilson in Castaway.
But also a little bit like the broken Dalek.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Whatever he's called.
Oh, the 12th Doctor's one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rusty, I think, or something.
Something, yeah. But I think that, again, that's a really nice thing of, particularly with the Cybermen and the Daleks, of humanizing. That's obviously not anywhere close to the... anthropomorphizing. Giving some positive... one of the things that I talk about that I'm not crazy about in terms of the Cybermen and the Daleks is that there's very little redemption in them. They are just bad guys, where my favorite episodes are the ones where the bad guys might not be quite as bad as we initially thought. And so we get a little bit of that with Handles. And it's so sad when he dies and reminds the Doctor to... Information. Yeah.
And then both in the first and last Matt Smith episodes, he's naked. So
I'm pro.
Parallelism there.
Yeah.
So you were the grandma there at Christmas dinner.
Yep. Yep.
Want to play Twister?
Yeah. Yep. I'm all for it.
All right. Well, any thoughts about the beginning and the end of the 11th Doctor?
I don't think so. I think I've purged everything I needed to say.
All right. Well, with that, let's go into the TARDIS library.
When you close your eyes,
I go to the library.
Go to the library now.
And for our Into the TARDIS Library segment, we're going to do something a little bit different.
But excited.
Yes, so instead of Jessica and I talking about something we've watched or something we've read or something we've listened to, we're going to let someone else talk about something they watched, as in interviewing someone. And that is, we're very glad to have back Constant Gibbs from Black Girls Create. Connie, welcome back to Time and Space.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Sure. And you had a chat with a doctor recently.
I did. I flew on the TARDIS. It was great.
Was it big? Actually bigger on the inside?
Of course it was. I flew with the Ninth Doctor. It was great. I got to meet Christopher Eccleston at New York Comic Con. And he was really great. He was the best.
Yes, you were... I don't know the first, but maybe one of the first, you can say that, right? One of the first to interview Christopher Eccleston at a Comic-Con at a panel.
And now we are officially two degrees separation.
Yeah.
I've been saying that to people. I did another podcast, and they had happened to ask me about it, and I was like, well, anyone who's met me is either 1 degree away from the Ninth Doctor or 2 degrees away from any of their favorite Doctors.
That's right. I mean, because Jodie was in with Jodie.
Right,
so,
exactly.
So how did you end up being the one?
Getting chosen as the companion.
Feel like I filled out a form. I think I can say that. Someone who works at Reed Pop, who's in charge of content at the con, I happened to know her. We're in a group together, and she had folks fill out a form with like things they're interested in. And obviously I put Doctor Who as the thing that I'm interested in, and I forgot about it. So I was not thinking about this when I got the email, because I remember being at work and opening my personal inbox and being like stopping, just like, I'm sorry, what? So I had completely forgotten that that's how I came about this. So shouts to Britt Rivera for thinking of me. And I really was literally like, I don't think I have any vacation days left, but I have to do this. Because I wasn't planning to take Thursday, Friday off for Comic-Con. I was kind of only vaguely planning to go, only if I could get in with some other group that was going to be there doing press stuff. And, like, if they needed help, you know, I was going to go and be like, I can only do Saturday, Sunday. So I wasn't planning to go Thursday or Friday. And then I got that email and I was just like, well, I have to do this, like, regardless of how many vacation days left I have.
Absolutely.
And I took a half day in order to like sort of make it better. And I think I've ended up being fine for other reasons, but I was just like, I have to do this. Like, there's no... And I've never done anything like that before on that, especially on that scale, because it was on the main stage, and obviously a very, you know, I'm a journalist. It's weird, still weird saying that. I don't know why, but you know, I've interviewed people before of celebrity. A lot of my job is not celebrities, but you know, whenever I get the chance, I take it. But so I've, you know, interviewed some people before, but you know, 15, 20 minutes max for, you know, to talk about whatever one thing, usually, like this movie, this TV show, and like any extra questions I can squeeze in, I guess. But an hour? Whew, that was gonna be a lot.
Fans?
Yeah, I purposefully didn't look up how many people fit in the main stage at the Jacob Javits Center in New York. I didn't look it up.
Good call.
And
Call.
I don't know if they like adjusted how many seats. You know, I don't know. I literally know nothing about the size of how many people were there. I feel like I wasn't as overwhelmed by the size of the people when I got onto the stage as I thought I would be. But then I've also been at like Hall H in San Diego as a guest, as an attendee, and it's nowhere near that size. So it's, you know, on the scale, it was still like, okay, this will be fine, because it's not a huge stadium. It's just the biggest stage at Comic-Con. It's fine. A New York Comic-Con. Yeah.
So this was New York Comic-Con. This was what, I think October 3rd, if I think correctly.
I don't remember. It's all a blur. It's all a blur.
Yeah.
And so, how did you? I mean, you know, because Jessica and I have watched your the actual interview, and we're going to post the link so everyone can watch it themselves.
Cool, thanks.
But I guess preparing the questions, you know, what was I mean, it all made sense, of course, but kind of from your preparation process, how was that?
So, Brittany, who contacted me about it and offered me the opportunity, she let me know that he had a book coming out, and I guess his publicist had sent a PDF her way, so she sent it to me, because it was coming out, I think, in a couple weeks before, you know, I think it was about a month out, and it was a couple weeks before Comic-Con, but after I would be getting the gig. So I wanted to make sure I read as much as that as I could, considering all the other things I have to do in my life. I didn't get to finish it, but it is very good. It's called I Love the Bones of You. And it was really interesting to, you know, I've watched Doctor Who, and obviously, but I haven't watched anything else he's been in, really. And I don't know much about him as a person, especially considering how much he's like stepped away from the fandom and stuff. So I didn't really know what to expect about who he was as a person. So it was really interesting to read his book, which was great and like very in his voice. Like I could hear him reading it. It sounded very much like him. And it was a great way to like learn more things about him. And so I was reading that. I asked around of like, what should I ask? And
what's word on the street?
Yeah, like what would you want to know? And made sure that I knew his non-Doctor Who things that he's done. So I did a little research on that just to, you know, I understood that I didn't have to like do a deep dive, but unlike some, you know, there was a thing a few weeks ago of a reporter who interviewed Rihanna and had no questions and was just told Rihanna that she, last minute, was just like, well, I don't have questions, so I'm just winging it, and put it in the article. So I didn't do that, basically.
Good call.
I did my best to prepare.
A journalist.
You know? Who would have thought? Yeah, when that story came out, I was just like, okay, but I just spent 2 weeks reading a book and like doing all the Googles on this man so that I could have questions prepared. And some people, you know, they are better at improvising questions than I am. Like, I know my strengths and my limits.
Or not.
Right.
I mean, that sounds...
Right, at the very least, don't tell the talent that you didn't bring the questions.
Yeah.
Like, that's rule number one. So yeah,
Yes.
I did
Write
that.
it down, baby.
And then he's, you know, this is one of the first cons he's done, but not the very first. So he had done a con. I don't remember if it was Rose City or not, but someone had posted a link to a video of, you know, him answering questions at a convention. So I watched that to see, you know, what he's up to talking about and wants to talk about and is open to answering, and just to get a vibe of like what he's like in that setting. So thankfully I wasn't the very first.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, good point. That would have been terrifying.
Because there's sort of a spectrum. Like, they can either be like, you have to constantly ask questions to get them.
Right.
Or, and this is my opinion, he was sort of a happy medium of where you could ask a question, but he could talk for a while.
Right.
Or you have those people where you're just on the stage and they just do the whole thing themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I watched that, and there were two things where I was just like, this will be fine, this will be fine, this will be fine. But also, I'm just naturally an anxious person. And then also, two things. One, a bunch of people were like, he's doing conventions now? Wow, he's talking about Doctor Who? And I was like, I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Right, like, so because it's one of his first conventions, it was, there was a lot of, not pressure from people, but just like curiosity from people about like, is he talking about this stuff now? Like, it is a pretty big deal because he had stepped away from the fandom for such a long time, like since he's left. And so, there was just a little bit of like, if one more person asks me, and I understand that and not actually being upset about it, but, and you know, cause I understand that people are shocked and curious and like, oh my goodness. And most people were like meaning it in a very kind way to me. Like, wow, you get to be one of the first people. But I also was just like, yikes. And then he had done some other interviews. He's doing press for his book, obviously, and his book goes into a lot of like really deep topics. And you know, a lot of the press and tabloids pulled out the heaviest ones and were talking about them and like sharing articles and stuff. And so that gave me hesitance as well, because I was just like, well, first of all, I haven't gotten to that part of the book yet, and of like at the point when it had come out, and because it's such a heavy topic and because it happened, like, the point was that, like, some of the stuff, like, mental health issues that he was going through were happening during Doctor Who. I was just like, okay, so how do I strike a balance of being open to addressing that, but also being open to not, because, like, obviously you don't want to, like, parade your trauma around, and obviously he wrote a book, so there is a little bit of that to be expected, but, you know, like, trying to strike the balance of, like, this is just a Comic-Con panel, I'm not Oprah, so understanding that I don't need to ask the really deep questions, but if I ask questions a certain way, if he wants to take it there, he could, like, giving him the option of going there, but I was just like, wow, of course he would announce some very deep mental health issues the week before, like 2 weeks before I'm about to interview him on a very national stage, of which I wasn't sure it would be live streamed. I'm thankful I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's not just the people in the hall.
Right.
There's like
it was
a
being
bunch of
live-streamed.
people watching online.
Like, after it was over, I, like, saw my notifications, and it was just like, because people had found the live stream and were, like, live tweeting it and tagging me and stuff, and I was just like, oh, I'm glad I didn't know that. Like, obviously they were streaming it because they had to have the big screens in the room for the people in the audience, but I was just not thinking about it, thankfully.
Yes. And I feel like it felt like he was aware of the space he was in as well. Like, he touched on body dysmorphia, mental health. You know, he talked a little more in depth about his father's dementia.
Right.
But that wasn't... It felt like he understood that wasn't the primary reason.
Right.
He knows
was at
everyone there's for
Comic-Con.
Doctor Who, but he still...
Yeah. He understood the audience.
Yeah, and that's really good of him, but also just, like, considering he hasn't done very many conventions, he was able to, like, immediately get that or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, you've done more cons than me, or Chris. Now you know, especially up front now. But like, you know, some people have that instinct or the feel of a con. I mean, like the celebrities, and some are just like, oh, no, I don't remember that scene. Anyway, this is what I'm doing now. You know, it's just okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, Catherine Tate was a little like
She
that.
was.
You know, she was a little like, I don't remember.
She just turns it into a stand-up improv and calls it, you know.
Yeah, that's also, I'm glad I was able to watch one of his previous conventions because of that. Like, you never know what the actor is going to not really feel about the property, but like even remembering things is and I have to, as a fan and a nerd, like sometimes I'm just like, what do you mean you're not obsessed with the intricate details of this thing? And then I remind myself, I'm like, they're just working a job, they're not necessarily invested in this property except for the idea that they get a paycheck and the continued paycheck that they may receive from further talking about this thing, but they're not really into it, you know? So
they have not watched themselves 5 times.
Right, like
per
most of the times
episode.
they haven't even watched it beyond having been in it. Like they haven't seen it a lot of times. So there was also that of like not knowing whether or not he was going to have memories, whether good or bad, to be able to talk about. So
yeah. I mean, 9 months out of his life. What?
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Exactly. Like it's a natural thing to not remember what you were doing and like certain specifics. So whatever he did remember and bring to the conversation was great, because I don't remember what I was doing for 9 months 15 years ago. I was a teenager,
especially not in your job,
right?
You know,
exactly.
or
like,
at school. You know,
right?
what
It would
were
be like
you studying?
asking what I was doing, like ninth period, like because that's how granular, you know, fans like us get when we're asking questions.
Absolutely.
Like, what did you do on the 5th day when you were shooting that particular scene? It's like I don't remember what scene that was. So thankfully, he had enough of that. He had enough of that to be able to actually have a conversation. Versus, there are many actors who you watched at conventions and they're like, I don't know.
Got nothing.
But we do need the sort of the standard lecture to anyone who asks a question, because in your, not to pick on the poor fellow, but there you had a person who asked a question, which luckily Chris knew, but they're like, you know, the last scene and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Right.
Like, how's he supposed to?
Right,
I mean,
and that's
did,
what it was.
but,
Like the granular questions that nerds ask, and not all, especially someone
provide
like
context, people.
Right, especially someone like Chris who hasn't done many of these. It's just like he's not used to people asking this kind of question, like necessarily.
The
like
intensity.
Yeah, like I don't know how many people stop him. Like I'm sure so many people stop him on the street, but I don't know. You know, in those opportunities, in those instances, you don't get the time to like ask, like, so this question that I've been thinking about for 15 years.
In episode 3,
right
about the 22-minute mark,
the TARDIS controller was. Before we get to the meat of it, so I guess did you actually have a chance to talk to Chris or have any interaction beforehand, or was it just your chair's up, let's go?
Very briefly, I went backstage and was like talking to the stage manager about like what it was, and I was like, can I have the audience ask questions? She's like, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, great, because that was a big part of the plan, just for my sanity's sake.
This is how many questions I have after that. I don't know.
Literally.
And if he's like Skip Marvel, and you're like, okay, well that was 2 of the cards.
Exactly. But and then he was surrounded by his people, and you know he's was also doing photo ops and autographs for the rest of the weekend, basically. So I'm sure people were it was not 11 a.m. on Thursday morning. So this was the first Hall H. I'm sorry, nope, not that. This is the first main
Big
stage.
hall.
Yeah, this is the first main stage event at the Javits that weekend. So it's just like, oh, this is the first one. And so, you know, I'm sure he had just gotten there and was like arriving or getting like the rundown of what the day and stuff would, and who would be handling him and stuff. That so then the stage manager was like, "Have you met Chris?" And I was like, "No," just standing there like awkward and small. So, you know, it was very brief. We like shook hands and we both went into like the deeper backstage area. We could see a screen of what the MC was doing on stage beforehand. So we mostly ended up watching that. And it was funny because it was one of those games that they play at cons that I've seen them play. They have like audience members on the stage and they like each have to name something until somebody gets out, and then they start over with a new topic. And so one was like animal noises, and so the people had to go back and forth with like naming animal noises until someone got buzzed out. And then another game was name works of Shakespeare. And so that was interesting because Chris Eccleston has played like many Shakespearean characters. So I could see him being like, I could see him being really like invested. And he was just like, what are they doing? And I was just like, oh, you know, he's just like warming up the audience and I was like, oh, right. He hasn't done this before.
Oh, yeah. Bless.
So he like took video at one point because I think one of the questions was like name Christopher Eccleston roles or like movies he's been in or something. So he took video of that. So he just like
have been good at that,
right? Like I don't know. I was about to interview him, and I was going to be like, I cannot play this game. And then I feel like it was just like banter. And I was just like, this is one of your first conventions, right? He's just like, yeah, I think I did a couple earlier this year or whatever, however many it is. And I was like, well, great. Have a great time. And
off we go.
Off we went.
What's your safe word? Let's go.
Right. Yeah.
That's probably an important question to ask. What's your safe word in
right.
this sort of situation?
If you're feeling uncomfortable, if the question is a bad one, like that's a good point. I should incorporate that if anyone ever chooses to ask me to do something like this again.
Hey, it's all about learning, right?
Maybe with Tom Hiddleston.
Right.
Yeah. So, Jessica, what are your questions about the meat of the interview?
What were your general impressions
Of Chris?
Yes, because I struggled a little bit. I really like him as an actor. I think he's amazing. And I actually agree with him about a lot of things. But I sometimes feel like it's heavy-handed. And I don't know if that's my, I don't know, as a Southern, possibly woman in particular, am I going, ooh. You're just supposed to say bless their hearts and move on. So I don't know if it's if
this
it's
is about spilling the tea or something.
Yes, and so I don't know if it's my gut reaction that he tends to be.
I think he's very clear and proud of his working class background and that brashness.
We drank.
Yeah.
We drank
that was our
every
drinking
time
game.
He said it.
Right. So I feel like it could be just a difference in that Southern hospitality versus a Northern working class, brash British citizen or whatever. He was very nice and funnier than I was anticipating. I had watched that previous panel, so I knew that he would be. So it wasn't a complete surprise, but having seen it once and then sitting with him experiencing it live and in person is very different. So I was just like, wow, he's so funny. I wish he would do a comedy because I think he'd be really good at it. And it's just surprising to me that he's done so many deep, dark, moody roles. But he seems to like that and gravitate to it, and it seems to come from his working class roots or whatever. As he said.
I'll drink.
As he said. So he was very nice, very attentive in terms of being understanding that I'm asking him questions and not wanting to be rude about directing his answers to the audience, and I'm they're here for you, but I appreciated that he was just look, I'm also paying attention to you, because I think a lot of times in interviews, whether on a stage or anytime you watch any interview that any of us have seen, you can kind of feel like they're not really listening to each other. And so I thought it was good that there was a clear, I'm not only listening to him to make sure that I can like the next question makes sense, but and that he didn't already answer it. But he was listening to me as a person who was sent to do his job. His eyes are very blue.
Acting skills. Acting skills are all about the listening.
Right, yeah. And not every actor can pull that off when they're not on set.
Yes.
His eyes are very blue. Very blue. Okay. Having watched season 9, I'd never really paid that much attention to his eyes before.
No.
But like, I'm 2 feet away and he's like literally staring me in the eyes, answering my questions. And I was just like, oh, hello.
Now I can't remember the next question.
I was like, I'm glad I have this paper right here with all my questions on it. But I was charmed by him. I, again, hadn't really paid much attention to him before being given this opportunity. So learning about that, his favorite style of music is like 60s Black American music. I was just like, okay, sing a few bars for me.
Yeah, I know.
And then he did. And then at that point, you needed to be like, okay, now that's good stuff.
Hey,
So,
musical theater, not.
You know what? Maybe when UK does Masked Singer, Christopher Eccleston could be doing some Motown.
Yeah,
that would be so funny.
I would be there for that.
That would be so funny. But yeah.
So obviously this is a subjective question, and to each their own, right? But one of the headlines that coming from this interview, you're making headlines.
Oh boy!
Here, was Chris talking about his exit from Doctor Who? Obviously, it's interest. He keeps using the word political, and I don't know what he means by that. I mean, it seemed to kind of mean like, and this is subjective. It seemed to mean like, oh, and I'm making this up. Oh, Russell and Julie and whoever, wanted me to kiss their ass or wanted me to whatever, and I want to do it because I'm an actor. But I'm like, really? I mean, but he kept saying political, and I don't, because he said it like 3 times.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what you mean by it. Like, because I mean, it's nothing. If I was you, I wouldn't follow up because it's Khan. You want to be friendly,
right?
But like, if it was like a hard hitting like Mike Wallace or whoever, like, what do you
probably
mean by
not
political?
Oprah. Probably not Oprah. I was going to say maybe Oprah, but no, probably not.
But I don't know. What'd you think about reflecting on it? What you think about Chris's answer to that?
I don't know. I think he's still striking a balance between being really open and brash and honest about it, and still keeping certain parts to his chest. So I don't know exactly,
which I appreciate,
right? Because it could have gone.
He's not like, let me tell you, these are all the terrible things.
Exactly. So I think that there are things that he still hasn't probably been open about. And someone at the end during the Q&A asked if. It was very awkward. I was just like, "Will I have to do something here?" Because he was asking a very honest, like he was trying to be a hard hitting political reporter. He was just like, "Oh," the person in the audience was like, "Oh, did you know? I heard this rumor.
About the extras,
right? And if you've seen any like bad mistreatment of the extras." And he was like, "No, but I didn't always like how the crew were being treated, and so I feel like." There's something there. And I don't, I still don't know exactly what that means, whether it's like, verbal abuse or time overworking them or whatever. So it could be any number of things, and his working class background.
Yeah.
So he has a empathy towards people in lower positions, which not all people, especially not all actors, do. So I think he's still keeping something to himself, and I feel like, we may find out, we may never find out what exactly it is, but I think he was also trying to strike the balance of not crapping on a thing that we're all here to, or the people who made the thing that we're here to talk to him about, and I think that that's an interesting position to have to be in, especially because you go to cons and you make money from conventions. And if you're if you're going to make a reputation of yourself for bad mouthing the property that you're there for, I think that would also limit your opportunities to do that again. And and
even besides the monetary opportunities, you don't want to have that reputation.
Right. In general. And I think his reputation is the whole point. Like, that was what bothered him in the first, part of what bothered him in the first place. Like, he left, and I feel like it was on bad terms, but then it was made worse because of how they, like, put his name out there and the way that he felt like his name was being treated. He said either in the interview or in some other interview that I read while I was researching that, like, for several years he didn't work in the UK, and then eventually his next biggest role was that, like, a lot of people at the convention were there to see him and talk to him about was The Leftovers, which is an American show. So I think he is very hyper conscious of, like, he needs to be honest because of who he is, but also he's very aware that, like, that leads to a certain type of reputation that is counterintuitive to the point is that they messed up his reputation. So it is an interesting balance. So I don't know what, it's sort of, office politics or whatever. It's just like, what does that ever mean, I guess? And it can mean a myriad of things. Mm-hmm.
And, it's one of the things I should probably just accept what I hear, but it's also some of the things of, like, I'm still not sure whether some of it's in Chris's head or not, about, like, not getting hired. Like, I mean, not that I not believe him, but I guess, I don't know, because he has, and I'm just going to sound negative, but I don't mean it just in this way. He has this chip on his shoulder because of his working class background. But that's just to say, deserved, right? That I mean, you can speak to this more than me, Jessica, but, that he is seen, like what he talked about in your interview, with Shakespearean productions, don't go to working class because those aren't the people who get cast, and, it's the whole accent, it's the whole background. I mean, and so obviously he's had to overcome either actual or perceived on, that. And so I think that's still with him to this day.
I think he's
that thing
consciously trying to find the, I guess, truth of it all, in that I'm sure whatever he perceives probably happened, but maybe he's, as now that he's, like, talking about it, and we asked him why, like, he's been asked, I forget which questions I asked him and which I read.
It was probably you. You made a lot of headlines.
About why now, like, why he's talking about all this now, and he's just like, I'm older now, so I think that maybe he does realize that whatever happens, he can control his own narrative now, so he's better in a better place mentally, perhaps, to like do it, to talk about it better, like, in ways that he couldn't then. Like, whatever was wrong, whatever was going on, he maybe felt like he didn't have power to talk about it the way that he has power to talk about it now. So, and then also, like, I don't know, how you talk about it 15 years later is perhaps
it's very different
than how you perceived it then, but also maybe how you were talking about it then, because you're still, like, emotional from whatever the things are. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I feel like I'm, I don't know. I don't know enough about, like, Russell or any of the other BBC folks to, like, necessarily say, give them a shot, because I feel like my instinct is rarely executive. It's to root for the executives.
You're with the working class.
Right.
Well, it obviously wasn't all controversial, a lot of good stuff. We were talking earlier about, you never know how an interviewee will be about their projects, but, he knew the episode titles. He knew,
which is more than I know a lot of times. So, yeah. So, and I've seen them probably more than he has.
Absolutely, you definitely have, because he talked about that. He was like, I don't know that he's actually seen it, or maybe it's, like, come on TV, but he's definitely shown his kids a couple, and they don't like it, because they're either scared, or they're like, Daddy, what are you doing?
Yeah. Which I think would be a really weird thing to see your parent. Yeah.
Well,
the whole thing.
The tenants have a new baby, and now
that's right. So they got to go through it all again.
Yeah,
and several times. They have so many.
Yeah. I did quite appreciate, because I had heard him talking about the 50th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And
that's another one where I don't know.
He didn't like his part.
I believe him on that one, because Moffat.
Oh no,
is just...
I do too. I do too.
Well, I think there were two drafts.
But at the same time, I also he's like, oh, it was just me and Dave, and Matt Smith just sort of talking about how we're the doctors, and there was a part of me that was like, yes. but that's not necessarily bad. Because that's sort of what that's what the 50th anniversary, that
that's what
but
crossovers with Doctors are. Yeah.
But then he went on to talk about, with once John Hurt was involved and the next version of the script, and he talked about how beautiful it was. And so I appreciated that in terms of he was okay that he didn't do it,
right,
and still appreciated it for what it was.
Right.
And I would have, again, loved to have seen John Hurt as the War Doctor, and then the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors prating about, talking about how great they were as Doctors. I would have been okay with a happy medium.
Wanted both, yes. Now that we fixed the other part of the draft, can you still do it? Just come back. And I think because was so open about some of his mental health struggles, I think there's probably parts of that where he was he maybe not was in a headspace to go back, or stuff that he didn't talk about, where it's, he put one narrative of why he didn't do it forward, but considering some of the stuff that's in his book and just the struggles that he went through, I would imagine it would be a really big, I have to go back to that. It's like going back to high school, kind of the point we were making earlier about what you were doing 15 years ago. It's putting yourself in this very specific place, not that it was 15 at that point, but in a very specific place in your life where you weren't necessarily happy, because he does talk about having this body dysmorphia while on this show that takes a lot out of you. So I feel I don't believe, not that I don't believe, but I don't think he was telling the whole story of why he didn't do it. But then also I believe that he saw the script and was just bro, let's rework this a little bit, especially considering, because my current desire is not necessarily for all of them to come. I mean, I obviously want all of the living Doctors to be in one episode. That would be great. But I would my higher desire, I guess, is for, and I mentioned this to him, I was just what, you already know Jodie. And I feel y'all, maybe friends, I don't know, but we'd like to see it, the two of you together. And I say that partially because he got so little time that I think that if he does return for a special, I'd like him to get more time. And putting him in an episode with two of the most popular Doctors ever, he doesn't get that time, and he doesn't get that appreciation that I think he could get if he had his own episode. So, I appreciate that I'm sad that he said no, but I think that him saying no probably made this, them revisit the story in a way that made it cool and maybe better. Obviously, I don't know what the first draft looked like, but I know Moffat, and he probably needed a second
Chris
draft.
Seems to trust it. So,
And
so,
also,
even to be able to say that. Even to be able to tell him, I feel this, and this is why I'm not going to do this is a big sign of their relationship and of the trust that they probably have with each other. Where you would never tell the person oh, I'm not going to do this because this sucks.
You'd just say, no, thank you, I have other commitments.
Right, exactly.
Bless your heart.
Exactly.
And I think ultimately he doesn't owe us as much as we want all the tea.
Right.
He doesn't actually owe us that explanation,
or even owe us a visit back. Honestly,
I
want it,
also
absolutely.
True,
but he, is allowed to move on with his life. Because if he came back too much, we'd be boy, sit down. So trying to find that balance. So Chris, just come. I already told you, but just come back that one time. Just one time. Just give it to us.
Just hang out with
maybe
Jodie.
twice, so that
we might be able to sneak David in because they're friends.
They're
too,
also friends.
So.
I would I think, get him back in the fold with Jodie and give him his space and his time. See what I did there?
Right.
And then he can come back for a very crowded special, and that would be nice. And then he could let it go, be free.
Yes, yeah. And he actually, I appreciated, because obviously, I'm sure we've all talked about the fact that we didn't get to see the 9th Doctor find his groove.
Yeah, he talked about that. He
talked
second
about
season
that. And so I appreciated that sort of awareness of sometimes it takes that second series to get into.
Yeah.
And we just missed it. And
Yeah, but I mean, absolutely. And then I think with watching this or watching y'all's interview, one thing that I thought about, that I don't think I've ever thought about, which is obvious, I just haven't thought about this way, is that Chris's approach to the role, like as an actor, what he was thinking, and he kind of talked about the influences of channeling his father and all that. And I just thought it was interesting because, again, it's this role that he kind of knows, but not really, as far as the past Doctors. And then you're inventing this character, and you have a lot of freedom. It seems like every Doctor Who actor just surprised me how much freedom they have with all these showrunners.
And he was
writers.
saying like, he was able to pick the outfit out and keep his accent and stuff. So that was more power than I thought he would have, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although, again, my posit has always been that the showrunners specifically chose Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper because they both had working class accents, and that they were trying to appeal to new audiences in that way.
In a way that like classic Who hadn't. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, while it was, partly his choice, I think it was also intent there to sort of bring in.
As an aside, I really want. Billy has never said anything about. I've never heard her saying anything about working with Chris. I want to just hear an interview. But she doesn't even have to say anything about like why he left. I just never. What's it like working with Chris for that year? So.
And that must have been really interesting because she was not really an actress at that point,
right?
And he is very much an actor, and a stage actor and Shakespeare. He has all of this experience and knowledge in his head, and what that difference and that dichotomy, the two of them together, must have been like.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, what was your...
So when you interview Billie Piper,
right? I'll be sure to make that on my list.
Ask those questions.
I only just realized I didn't ask Chris about working with Billie at all.
yeah. I think he mentioned her once.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was sort of... Oh, it was. He was talking about the writers seemed to be quite focused on her.
Oh,
character.
that Russell knew how to do, like you were saying.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah.
But,
well, what was your favorite part of the interview, other than when it was over and the pressure was off?
Right. I don't know, because it was all very. I was just eyeing the clock, honestly, just staring at my questions and eyeing the clock. So I don't know that I had a favorite moment necessarily, because it was all, it was all great in that, like, I was like, this is going okay. The whole time I was just like, okay. And I was like eyeing my questions and like, okay, this is how many questions I have left, how much time I have left.
You weren't like panicking, like,
but also if I
two questions left, there's an hour to go.
Right, but also I was like, if I do run out of questions, I'm going to just pivot to the audience, which is what I did, and that worked out fine. I did want to wait as long as possible because I didn't want as much time with the audience because their questions can be unpredictable. So I wanted to...
Audiences be crazy.
This is more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, I just want to talk about... So when I was 5 years old, I was like, okay...
And you totally had that person in the audience asking questions.
Absolutely, but it's I guess sort of par for the course, and he should experience that.
That's right.
And understand
People
that this is part of it.
Make connections.
You're welcome.
But I did wait as long as I could, but I really did run out of questions, and I was like, well, it's time for the audience. And I knew that they would have questions that I wouldn't have thought of, and I thought that would be important. And, you come to a big thing like this.
I've listened to gossip, and now I'm coming to the source.
I know. It's just like,
terrifying.
What do I do?
I am also an actor, and I would like to. I am also a writer, and I would like to.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Can you produce my film?
Making
Thanks.
a connection.
No,
yeah, make a connection.
And I think we should also talk about your branding was on point. You had your Tarbis T-shirt. You had your Was that a TARDIS dress? Anyway, but he had the very
was
kind of colorful TARDIS-like dress.
It was a skirt
you had your
that I very
TARDIS note cards.
It was a skirt that I very purposefully picked out to match the shirt, and I was like looking around, like I need it to like at least a little bit the same blue, not exactly the same, but I was like, this one has like yellow, and I was like, look, it's very TARDIS-y, and
it's like the Van Gogh TARDIS explosion.
Yeah, and very Bad Wolf, like the glow of the TARDIS. The note cards was a whim the day before. Caitlin Sky, they host a podcast called The Queer Archive that just started this year. They are an artist and made this like beautiful TARDIS. I forget what it is inspired by, so Caitlin, forgive me if you're listening to this, but it was really cool and really pretty, and I was like, oh, instead of like having my phone, and I was hyper aware that like notifications, even if I put my phone on silent, and the concern of like if your phone dies or if there's no internet or whatever, and then also just like you're sitting there. And I've seen it with, like, other panelists. Not that they did a bad job of it, but I was just hyper aware that I probably wouldn't be as good at it. Just, like, having to unlock your phone or, like, be conscious about keeping it on and into the app. All of that was just, like, instead of dealing with that.
But not run out of batteries.
Right, like, instead of dealing with any of that, I was like, I could just print them out and have a backup copy. Kick it old school.
Proper old school.
Yeah, kick it old school. And then I was like, but it would be fun. So I have the TARDIS on the background. So I did it, and then I was like, hey, Caitlin, can I do this? And they were like, sure. And I was like, great, thank you. Thanks to them for letting me use that, just to, for cuteness reasons. It wasn't, I wasn't able to like shout out about it or anything, but it made me feel better.
But now you can.
Right, and it made me feel better, so yes.
Well, what are your final thoughts about the experience? Now that you're headline to the Doctor Who
I know,
news.
it was very strange to see like it was a combination of like obviously there were a lot of like articles about the thing, but I realized that I did not introduce myself or say who I was when I walked out on stage. So there are like 90% of the articles. I mean, not that I'm important. I'm hyper aware that I'm not important here. I do not matter. I am not why anybody is there to see anything. But I was just like, wow, no one knows that I did this except for like 3 outlets that like already like had a person who followed me or happened to research it, because I mean my name's on it's on the Comic-Con app, so if you happen to like look, you'd see it there, so if you really wanted to include it, you could. But I was just like, this is really funny.
Journalists who are writing an article about it really
but again, I recognize that I'm not important, so it's just like I'm not really like annoyed about it, but it was.
But unnamed interviewer is also a little awkward.
Exactly.
Christopher Eccleston to the right on Names Woman.
Yeah, but it was
girlfriend? Question mark. What are you doing?
He's probably single.
Somewhere in the
knows?
Daily Sun, you showed up. That's right.
Oh yikes! Especially because like I'm in Getty Images now. It's so funny. People were sending me.
You get like a union card from
right.
them?
It was very strange.
SAG.
It was very strange though, because it was interesting because, again, I recognize that I'm not the point. But from the reactions that I got, I'm reminded that some moderators do think that they are the point. Because, like, I walked out, I was just like, no one even knows who I am. It doesn't matter. Let's keep moving on. And there's no real way to, like, rectify that before the end of the thing. But at the end, like, when I walked out, several people stopped me to say I did a good job. And I was like, sure, thank you, but also like I don't matter. But I think because there are moderators out there, and I think that was why, Brittany at Read Pop was like, let's diversify this thing, because a lot of the moderators come from the same demographic and background, and like a lot of them think that they're funny, and there's just like a type of person who typically gets those gigs, and so I was thankful to be able to like shake it up a bit and be a different type of person, but I have seen a lot of conventions where it's just like, oh, the moderator's terrible, and so it is.
Get out of the way.
So I do recognize that it is an important, like it is a thing that people notice, because...
And it's a skill that not a lot of people recognize as a skill.
Right.
It is a skill.
Yeah, and I'm still, getting my skills up, but I was shocked.
Yeah, you were fantastic.
I mean, that's like plus 25 experience for the character sheet.
But I was quite shocked by how many people like stopped me. Like I was leaving and someone tapped me on the shoulder to say like, you did a great job. And I was just like, okay, thank you. And then obviously it was being live streamed, so I'm having people on Twitter tell me this, and I'm getting images, and I'm just like, it was just like an overwhelming sense of like, I felt personally like, okay, I accomplished this, I did it, and nothing terrible happened. But then people sort of validating that and sort of going the extra mile of like, no, you did a great job. And like, I uploaded the video and I've kept the notifications on for the comments, which, on YouTube is a very dangerous thing to do.
It is.
Hit or miss.
Yeah. And I've gotten like 2, I think 3, but like 2 are from the same person, of like people being negative in the comments. And I was like, oh, is it time to turn it off? But then there are people who are, either saying nice things about Chris, but there are people in the comments like, oh, the moderator did a great job, this was a great interview. And I was just like, oh, okay, great.
I'll keep it on for another day.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. Own it.
So I'm trying to find that
say.
balance of like being humble about it, and like I looked up some questions, but
well, you realize now
also,
with
like,
that on your CV,
right.
you're set up for the next.
I hope so.
NYCC needs another big star.
Also, next up, I think Hall H.
Yeah.
Oh boy, maybe with some help on that one for the first tryout.
No, you're like San Diego. I'm like, I did NYCC with Chris Eccleston.
Yeah,
what are you going to throw at me?
right.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Yeah, what you bring it.
I mean, Tenet? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just working my way down.
I think, as I said, there are so many people who... it's like being an MC. Mm-hmm. It's a skill. And everybody, there are people who are like, well, yeah, I can do that, and they cannot.
Right, right.
And so the fact that you have that skill, absolutely own that, and absolutely put it on your CV.
So kudos and snaps.
Yes, and absolutely vie for Hall H.
Yeah.
Will do.
We will vote. If there's a voting, we will vote.
If we need to give a vacation day, let us know.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have it donated
Absolutely.
from my friends, from my podcast friends, all donating their vacation days so I can go to San Diego Comic-Con.
for personal days.
That's
So
we're in.
So if folks can find you online and elsewhere, where can they hit you on the interwebs?
Probably mostly at Constar24 on Twitter, and most places. And you can see the video. It's currently pinned to my timeline, but it's also somewhere on my website, constarrights.com.
And we'll post a link as well.
Great.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we appreciate it, Connie, and thanks for doing a great job.
Yeah, thanks
Well
for having me
done.
on. Thanks
so
for
exciting.
Letting me relive it again. Not that people haven't still. Someone asked me yesterday. They're like, "I haven't seen you. How was your interview?" And I was just like, "Oh, right, that thing." It's like the further away I get from it, not that I forget that it happens, but it feels, I'm more removed from that like hyper focus on it. So it's very like, right.
So when we ask you about what happened at minute 12,
Yeah, do you remember
Exactly.
Are you
when
going to
you
be able
had
to?
one of the cards
Exactly.
up? What did that card say?
I'm not as good as Chris Eccleston in remembering things a month ago, much less 15 years ago. Literally, I was just like, I don't even know if I asked that question or not.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So.
Yeah. But amazing work.
Thank you.
Amazing. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Thanks.
All right. So what are we talking about next episode, darling?
Next episode, we are going to look at the story arcs that the 11th Doctor experiences. So series 5 through 7.
Yeah, Steven Moffat sometimes gets criticized for his timey-wimey. And we talked about how the first episode lasted till the last episode. And so we're going to talk about the different story arcs of those 3 seasons and whether we enjoyed them or whether they made sense or et cetera, et cetera. Since, we didn't necessarily always have strong story arcs after that. I don't mean that in quality, but I mean literally, with the 12th Doctor's first series, you had the Missy thing. But that was just more of you have this cameo, and then at the end, the last 2 episodes, we explain what it is. That's not, I guess it's a story arc, but not really.
Yeah.
And then you went from there, I suppose. But anyway, so these were all definitely stronger to me.
And the 13th Doctor, the
Has
first
none.
season specifically was
Arcless.
built not to have arcs, yeah.
So, but they were definitely strong story arcs, whether, like I said, not talking quality, but they were definitely there.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about those. Well,
And the pieces that fall into places.
yeah, or don't. We want to thank, as always, Wally and Sononauts for providing us with their jazz Doctor Who theme tune. So until next week, enjoy the Doctor's many adventures throughout time and space.
This is BBC Television.